This is the truth about CBDCs and digital currency. This is everything you need to know. It is the definitive guide. So, let's start off with a CBDC. A CBDC stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. Now, what is a currency? The word currency is derived from the word circulate. And circulate means revolve and flow within set parameters. Now, where do the currents that circulate within a river flow? They flow next to a bank, a river bank, which means in economic terms, currency are created by banks. So, what is it that banks do? Banks control the flow of circulating currency within an economy. And this is exactly why we are in the trouble that we are in. Because what we should be using is money. That's right, we should be using money. And there is a big difference between money and currency. Let me explain. Money is a medium of exchange. And a medium of exchange is a tool that enables, encourages, and accelerates the facilitation of trade. Trade is the exchange of goods and services between a living man or woman. Commerce is the exchange of goods and services between corporations, which are legal fictions. Banks are corporations that are legal fictions. Banks can create currency because currency has no value. There is no requirement to exchange value between corporations because corporations are corpse dead entities. So, money is a commodity. Currency is created by a central authority, and it's really important to distinguish between the two. There are only 4 things that circulate within an economy. There are goods that are created, services that are provided, securities that are certified secured entitlement, in other words, for things that you cannot purchase and prove your possession of, so you therefore need a certificate to secure your entitlement to it, for example, the purchase of land and shares and other things like that. And the last one is commodities. Now, commodities are common to everyone, and they are therefore either extracted or grown. Now, currencies issued by a bank are securities, and they started their life out as a claim on gold. However, if that secured entitlement is removed and the security now no longer secures your entitlement to anything, that is classified as securities fraud. And this is what we're dealing with today. Now let me tell you a little story of how it happened. So, if you want to install a new world order under a totalitarian one world government, you must control money. And this is a brief story of how they've done it. It was Henry Kissinger who said, "Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world." Also, a quote here from Nathan Rothschild that said, "I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply. These people have understood and known the power of money for a long time." Now, money being a medium of exchange, that is a tool that enables, encourages and accelerates the facilitation of trade, is economically competitive because people will just simply use the tool that facilitates trade in the best way, which means there will be only one. And by 1944, that one medium of exchange was gold, known as the gold standard, that all currency was backed by. So if you have the desire to install a totalitarian one world government, you need to steal all the gold in the world. Now, the European countries at the time, being the wealthiest countries with the most gold reserves, they realised they needed to get the gold off them. So what they did is they financed Hitler and they got him to instigate a war in Europe to drain the European countries of their gold reserves. So towards the end of the war, when all the European countries were running out of gold, the American corporations said to the countries of Europe, You now no longer have enough gold to back the amount of currency that you have in circulation, because we've got it. So now your currency is going to be backed by the value of our currency, and it's our currency that's going to be backed by gold. Now, the American corporations were also financing Hitler, and when Hitler realised that they'd made this Bretton Woods agreement in 1944, he realised he'd been betrayed. So the war very quickly finished in 1945. This arrangement continued until the 15th of August 1971, when Richard Nixon announced what is now known as the Nixon shock. And from this day forward, all currency created by banks as we know it became securities fraud. However, because they didn't want people calling it securities fraud, they gave it a fancy name. They called it fiat currency. And this is the moment it happened.
We must protect the dollar from the attacks of international money speculators. We are going to take that action, not timidly, not half-heartedly, and not in piecemeal fashion. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. To our friends abroad, including the many responsible members of the international banking community who are dedicated to stability and the flow of trade, I give this assurance. The United States has always been and will continue to be a forward-looking and trustworthy trading partner.
Even Richard Nixon, being a seasoned politician, had trouble hiding his own lie. He knew that this was the largest financial crime in history. The case law that establishes securities fraud is that of the SEC versus W.J. Howie Co. 1946. So if anyone or anything attempts to engage you in trade that you don't wish to participate in, for example, levying a charge or a fine or a penalty against you, the question you have to ask is, how are you not attempting to engage me in securities fraud, as defined by SEC versus W.J. Howie Co. 1946? And this brings us nicely on to the next question. What is money? Well, a money is a monopoly commodity. That's how the word money is created. So now we know a security is simply made up on the spot by a central authority. So what is a commodity? Well, the word commodity is created from three words. It is a common item that's been identified. So in other words, it is a common item, which means it's either extracted or grown, so energy has gone into extracting it. We know that it has then been itemized, and then the item has then been identified to make it unique, which means it can then be used as a medium of exchange to exchange for goods and services of an equal value. So when a commodity monopolizes a market due to its ability to be used as a medium of exchange, it becomes a monopoly commodity and recognized as money. So now we know money has to be a commodity. However, it cannot be a commodity that is grown, because people would just simply grow as much money as they could. Therefore, it has to be a commodity that is extracted. It has to be fixed in supply, indestructible, and easily divisible amongst everybody in the economy. And to give it value, it must have a use case. If something is useless, it is worthless. If something is useful, it is valuable. It's that simple. The question I now hear everybody asking is, how can something that is digital be a commodity? Well, let's find out. This is the Bitcoin white paper. It is titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Now, what is cash? Cash is the most liquid form of money, and money has to be a commodity. So let's find out how you can commoditize a data network. If a network were just simply created on the spot, it would be a securitized network and be economically worthless. A commodity data network must be developed over time, and this is how it's done. Everything about the network must be common. It must be common in every aspect. So each and every aspect must not have a central point of authority or control. So, starting from the top, we can see a timeline. The first date we have on the timeline is the 31st of October 2008. Now this represented the release of the white paper. The white paper was released to a cryptographic mailing list to a group of very competent people who would have understood the significance of the information that they were reading in the white paper. They would have understood the significance of SHA-256 and public and private keys. This is the equivalent of those living in the Californian mountains being closest to the gold and, as luck would have it, therefore having the greatest chance of being able to find it first. In law, a reasonable amount of time is considered 2 months. If you're a landlord, for example, and you want to serve notice on your tenants, you have to give them 2 months' notice, because 2 months is considered a reasonable amount of time in order for them to find alternative accommodation, get themselves sorted, packed, and moved out. Now, this is why the Bitcoin white paper was released on the 31st of October 2008, and yet the network wasn't started until the 3rd of January 2009. This was to provide a common opportunity for anyone and everyone to start the network themselves after having been provided with all the information that they needed. So, after 2 months and 4 days had passed, the network was started by a pseudonym called Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, because Satoshi Nakamoto was a pseudonym and very few people knew who he was, this allowed the network to grow organically without any central point of influence, which gives the network more credibility as a commodity. Now, this generated a period of speculation and organic growth. Due to the system being economically competitive, due to its consensus mechanism known as proof of work, it meant that as the network grew, any central point of influence would be diluted over time. This meant that after a period of 10 years, it can be calculated that there is a 99.9% chance that no other digital commodity network would achieve this level of neutral size and growth. And it is this neutral size and growth that digital commodity networks compete with each other for. This period of speculation and organic growth was always planned to come to an end, with the return of the Tulip Trust and the Satoshi coins contained within it to the person behind the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto, and this happened on the 1st of January 2020. A case resolving who was the rightful owner of the Satoshi coins contained within the Tulip Trust was settled in a federal court in Miami and reported on by The Guardian, that says here, Australian man Craig Wright wins US court battle for Bitcoin fortune worth billions. And as we can see down here, it says, this case was tried in a federal court in Miami. Other newspapers also reported on the same case. This was the Times newspaper. It said, Craig Wright, the man claiming to be the inventor of Bitcoin, mined 1.1 million Bitcoins under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009. With the title, Bitcoin founder Craig Wright wins battle to keep his crypto billions. It was also reported on by the Daily Mail, who wrote an article stating, living quietly in a Surrey village. Is this really the man who invented Bitcoin? US court rules, autistic Aussie tech genius Craig Wright created the cryptocurrency and he could be worth a staggering £36 billion. And this is the document written by the late Dave Kleiman, who created the Tulip Trust. It says, to whom it may concern, and CC'd in Dr. Craig Wright. I acknowledge the trust and the transfer of Bitcoins to this trust. I have full control of all software and the keys to use to manage Bitcoin as of this date, Thursday, the 9th of June, 2011. He states, it is agreed that I, David Kleiman, shall become the trustee of the transfer of the Satoshi I have received from Craig Wright. No record of this transaction will be filed in the US or Australia. The transfer is valued at 100,000 USD for Australian tax purposes. He continued, I, Dave Kleiman, have received 1,100,111 Bitcoin from Craig Wright. At the time of transfer, this is valued at around 100,000 US dollars. I will form a trust to be managed by at least 3 people, but not more than 7 at any time. All Bitcoin will be returned to Dr. Wright on the 1st of January 2020. This date was intended to end the period of speculation and organic growth, and now focus on the period of adding value and utility to the network, and the erosion of speculation, which will bring stability to the price and therefore increase its ability to be used as a medium of exchange with a stable value. Now, there are 5 principal constructs that create a digital commodity network that must be in place at all times, and they are: number 1, a fixed supply, so no one controls it and it is therefore common to everyone. A locked protocol, so no one can change it and it is therefore common to everyone. The protocol is the rule set, it is the foundation to which the digital network is built upon. 3, infinite capacity, so limitations and restrictions cannot be manufactured and it is therefore common to everyone. 4, economic competition, so the network is open to everyone and therefore common to all. Without economic competition, you simply get collusion and centralization. A network is either economically competitive or centrally controlled. There is no middle ground. And finally, number 5, a chain of digital signatures for common accountability. This means that blame cannot be reassigned and everybody is individually equally responsible for the data that they upload to the network. Therefore, those who maintain the network cannot get away with controlling the network because they are equally accountable as all the other users and developers on the network themselves. And so you might ask, what on earth has happened to Bitcoin during that speculative phase and neutral organic growth? This is a visual representation of what has happened. The protocol has been changed, but the name has been socially engineered and manipulated and stolen to follow an alternative protocol. This happened because the person who is currently in control of the world reserve currency and the US dollar realized that Bitcoin was a threat to his economic power and dominance. Now remember, one of the fundamental constructs of the network to remain and be classified as a commodity is the chain of digital signatures. Yet we can see here on Wikipedia a software upgrade called SegWit, which stands for Segregated Witness, that segregated the digital signatures from the transaction data, was implemented on the 24th of August 2017. This fundamentally turned the BTC network from a commodity network into a centrally controlled, securitized network and crashed its economic value to 0. The original protocol and genuine Bitcoin with the chain of signatures still intact then continued with a new name and new ticker symbol. This time it was called Bitcoin Cash and had the ticker symbol BCH, until a group of developers led by Roger Ver started deleting the transaction data and tampering with the digital signatures yet again. The protocol was changed on the 15th of November 2018. And so the original protocol and genuine Bitcoin had to carry on with a new name and new ticker symbol. It was now called Bitcoin SirToshi Vision and had the ticker symbol BSV. So now we know that data can only be commoditized one way, which means there will be only one digital commodity, and that the original protocol and genuine Bitcoin has the ticker symbol BSV. The question is, what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the asset that economically sustains and fundamentally supports the world's first ever commercial internet. The internet as we currently know it is a group of interconnected corporate servers. When you upload your data to the internet, you are surrendering that data to a corporate server. The corporation that owns that server then owns the data that you have surrendered to them, which means you do not own it. The data is also susceptible to being deleted because it is centrally owned and controlled by that single central corporation. However, when you upload data onto the Bitcoin network, because the Bitcoin network is a globally distributed, economically competitive network of mining operations that economically sustain the network and process transactions. You have control over your data. The network no longer has a central point of authority, control, or failure, which means your data cannot be deleted, meaning it is safe from virus software and cybersecurity hacks. This means, for the first time in history, we now have a network of immutable data. And immutable data means it can be used as money. And it's the value of this money that economically sustains the miners that keeps them maintaining the network. The value proposition of this is huge, because it now means that tech companies that are the largest companies on Earth now no longer have to worry about storing their data and keeping it safe, because everything can run on the Bitcoin network. The Bitcoin network can do absolutely everything that the current internet can do and more, because it is economically sustained. Because the mining operations operate and sustain the network 24 hours, 7 days a week, it means that Bitcoin must always have a market price 24 hours, 7 days a week, which is why the markets run 24/7. Today's date is Tuesday, the 18th of October 2022. Now let's have a look at the statistics that represent the fundamental figures of the original protocol and genuine Bitcoin. We currently have a price today of just $48. A hash rate, which is the number of attempts miners have at finding SHA-256 at 0.2%, network nodes, which are the mining operations supporting the network. But look at this, the transaction volume is 97.39% of the entire network in comparison to these alternative protocols. And the block size, which is the data being uploaded onto the network, represented at 99.81%. This is absolutely enormous. Look at the size of these blocks coming through here. Look at these gigabyte blocks. And it's currently 7.2% more profitable to mine on the network due to the volume of data and transactions being uploaded onto the network. However, this graph is the most important one by a long shot. This is the daily accumulated Bitcoin blockchain growth by network. Look at this. This is the size of the network. This represents the amount of utility, the number of corporations coming on and using the network for its data efficiencies and data securities. This is just absolutely phenomenal. So the market currently consists of around 20,000 coins, which we'll have a quick look at here. Here we go. 99 pages, my goodness me. So right down the bottom, so it looks like we've got 19,738 coins on the market. And of that, look at this, Bitcoin has got 78.2% of the entire volume of transactions of the nearly 20,000 coins, leaving XRP with just 9.8% and Ethereum with 8.2%. There is no comparison. They cannot compete with the original protocol and genuine Bitcoin. The only reason the price is low is because the price is the last metric to move. Price is the end result of all the hard work, effort and investment that has gone in prior. Therefore, it is the least of all metrics that matter. What matters are the fundamental figures that I've just shown you right here. So, why is Bitcoin so important? Well, we either have a common money used by the people to create government that works for the people, or government will create money to control the people. These are the only scenarios available to us. Save us from the CBDC and start using and buying BSV today. Head over to www.buybsv.live, the best place to buy Bitcoin SV online, the original protocol and genuine Bitcoin.